40 years ago, the narrow alleys of Hong Kong, bustling with trams and double-decker buses, had seemed like an alien world to Magdalena, Maggie Santos. Born and raised in the provincial heart of the Philippines, her journey to Hong Kong was one of necessity, not choice. The stark reality of poverty had pushed her away from her small village and into the heart of the city where towering skyscrapers loomed over the sea of people. A newly married woman back then, she had been determined to help her family survive. Little did she know that this bustling metropolis would become her home, and that her employer's family would eventually consider her one of their own. In 1983, Maggie had only been in Hong Kong for a few days when she was introduced to the Tan family. Standing nervously at the doorstep of their upscale apartment in mid-levels, she was greeted by Impress Rebecca Tan, a tall, slender woman in her early 30s. And Edward Tan, a successful lawyer, was often away on business. Rebecca was a housewife, soft-spoken and kind, with a calm grace about her that immediately put Maggie at ease. The Tans had 2 children, Henry, a curious 8-year-old, and Vivian, a rambunctious 3-year-old. Maggie's job was to take care of the children, keep the apartment clean, and cook meals for the family. It was daunting, especially since she was unfamiliar with Hong Kong and had only a basic understanding of Cantonese. Yet, she had been hired based on her good English, strong work ethic, and glowing recommendations from her agency in the Philippines. The early days were challenging. Maggie struggled to adjust to the pace of life in Hong Kong. The city was fast and relentless, far from her quiet village where neighbors greeted each other in the streets and life moved slowly. The apartment, though modest by Hong Kong standards, felt luxurious to Maggie, and the kitchen was a maze of appliances she had never seen before. On top of that, Henry and Vivian were initially wary of her. Henry would watch her with curious eyes, while Vivian often threw tantrums, demanding to be held by her mother. But Maggie had been hired to help, and help she did. She poured her heart into her work, rising early each day to prepare breakfast for the children, learning to navigate the city's wet markets, and mastering Cantonese phrases bit by bit. Over time, the children began to warm up to her. Henry, who loved to read, would sit with Maggie in the evenings and teach her Chinese characters. Vivian, after many tearful mornings, finally allowed Maggie to braid her hair and sing lullabies in Tagalog. The bond between Maggie and the children grew stronger with each passing day. For Rebecca, Maggie became more than just an employee. She became a trusted confidant. There were days when the pressures of maintaining the household and social obligations weighed heavily on Rebecca. On such days, she would sit at the kitchen table with Maggie, sipping tea while the children napped, and talk about her worries. Maggie, with her quiet wisdom and gentle demeanor, would listen patiently, offering words of comfort and encouragement. They came from different worlds, but they understood each other in ways that transcended language and culture. As the years passed, Maggie became an indispensable part of the Tan household. She celebrated the milestones of the children, Henry's graduation from high school, then college, and Vivian's debut into Hong Kong society. During this time, Maggie's own life in the Philippines changed too. Her husband, Fernando, remained in their village, working the small farm they had inherited. They had hoped to start a family, but distance and financial struggles made it difficult. Over time, Maggie and Fernando's letters grew less frequent, their conversations more stilted, until one day, the letters stopped altogether. Maggie was heartbroken but found solace in the Tan family, who had become her second family. Rebecca noticed the change in Maggie's demeanor. One evening, as they prepared dinner together, Rebecca gently asked Maggie about her husband. Maggie hesitated but then opened up about the estrangement, her quiet voice trembling with sadness. Rebecca didn't press for details but offered Maggie an embrace, something neither of them had expected. In that moment, the unspoken understanding between them deepened. When Henry left for university abroad, Maggie became a source of comfort for Rebecca, who struggled with the empty nest syndrome. Vivian was still at home, but the absence of her firstborn weighed heavily on Rebecca's heart. Maggie would often remind her that Henry was just a phone call away and that he would return soon. The two women grew closer, and Maggie became more involved in the family's life beyond her duties. She accompanied them on family trips, learned to cook traditional Chinese dishes, and even helped Rebecca host dinner parties for friends and relatives. For Maggie, the Tan family had filled a void that her own fractured family had left behind. While she still sent money home to her aging parents in the Philippines, she had accepted that her life was now in Hong Kong. The children she had raised were not her own blood, but they were her children in every other sense of the word. Time moved swiftly, and by the time Maggie had been with the Tans for over 2 decades, the dynamics of the household had changed. Henry was now working as an architect, and Vivian was pursuing a career in fashion. Edward Tan had retired from his law practice, and the once active household had quieted. Maggie, now in her 50s, still kept the home running smoothly, but her duties had lightened as the children had grown. Then came a blow none of them expected. Rebecca was diagnosed with cancer. It was aggressive and swift, leaving the family reeling. Maggie, who had never truly considered herself anything more than the help, suddenly found herself at the center of the family's grief. She took on the role of caregiver, sitting with Rebecca through the long nights, holding her hand during hospital visits, and caring for her as the illness ravaged her body. During one quiet afternoon, when the children were at work and Edward was at a meeting, Rebecca confided in Maggie, her voice weak but determined. "You've given us so much, Maggie," she said. "You're not just an employee. You're family." Maggie, who had always maintained a sense of formality, felt tears well up in her eyes. She wanted to say something, but no words came. Instead, she simply held Rebecca's hand, their bond solidified in that moment of shared vulnerability. Rebecca passed away a few months later, leaving behind a family devastated by grief. Maggie, too, mourned deeply. She had lost more than an employer, she had lost a friend, a sister, and a confidante. But she knew she had to stay strong for the family that was now hers. In the days following the funeral, she cooked meals for the Tans, quietly keeping the house running while they grieved. It was Henry who first approached Maggie about staying on. He was now the head of the family, and though Maggie was nearing retirement age, he insisted she remain with them. "Your family, Auntie Maggie," Henry said, using the affectionate title the children had adopted for her. "We want you here with us." With Rebecca gone, the Tan household felt different, but Maggie's place within it became even more pronounced. Vivian, who had always been independent, began turning to Maggie for advice and comfort. The relationship, once marked by a youthful rebellion on Vivian's part, transformed into one of mutual respect and affection. Maggie became a source of wisdom for the younger woman, helping her navigate the complexities of adulthood. Maggie's days were less physically demanding now, but she found new ways to contribute to the family. She helped manage the household, took care of Edward as he aged, and even became involved in the lives of Henry and Vivian's children. By this time, Henry was married and had 2 young boys, while Vivian had adopted a daughter. Maggie was no longer just a domestic helper, she had become the matriarch of the household, a respected elder whose opinion was sought on matters big and small. One Christmas, as the family gathered around the dinner table, Henry made a speech that moved Maggie to tears. "Auntie Maggie," he began, raising his glass, "you've been with us for 40 years. You've seen us grow, succeed, and stumble. You've taken care of our family through every joy and every heartbreak. And now, you're not just our helper, you're our family. We can never repay you for everything you've done, but please know that you'll always have a home with us." Maggie, overwhelmed with emotion, could only nod in response. She had spent her entire adult life with the Tan family, and while she had long ago accepted that her own life had taken a different path from what she had envisioned, she was grateful for the love and respect she had earned. The Tans were not her flesh and blood, but they had become her family in every other sense. Now in her 70s, Maggie often reflected on the life she had led. She had arrived in Hong Kong as a young woman, full of hope and fear, and had stayed for 40 years. In those decades, she had seen the world change around her, the rise of technology, the shifting political landscape of Hong Kong, and the inevitable passage of time. She had missed out on parts of her own life, her marriage, her family in the Philippines, but she had gained something far more meaningful in return. The Tans were her second family, and she had become more than a domestic helper to them.